welcome back to Reading Light, the podcast shining a light on different book topics, discussions, ideas, concepts, the whole thing. You know the spiel by now, perhaps. But hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. How is everyone doing? I hope you all are doing super great. Not much going on here. We're in the heat of the summer right now, and part of me is hoping it goes by quicker than than it maybe has been. It's very hot, especially very hot when I'm recording this, and I imagine when this goes up, it'll be just as hot because it should go up like mid-July, so I'm sure it's hot and humid everywhere. The hurricane stuff, I'm sure that's raging. Wow, I make that sound so like unimportant by calling it hurricane stuff, but it's definitely no hurricane season. It's ramping up as I record this, and it should be, I think, in full swing by the time this goes up, but I'm sure that's really having fun. I do remember it. I always think about this now, but once I got really sick one July, and just for like a weekend. It wasn't too much. It was just some bug I picked up, and I was like restricted to my couch, and I was like sick. I was so out of it, and I just had on the Weather Channel the whole time because there was some hurricane hitting somewhere. So I was like, you know what? It's wall-to-wall coverage. I can just put this on and just let my body try to get out of whatever is going on here. So I always think about that, and I'm like, wow, it was a terrible time, but it was also a really funny time to just be lounging around like and watching a hurricane hit. Felt really bad. It was not good. It turned out to be, it was a little bit of a crazy sort of hurricane. Not sort of, it was a hurricane. It was a pretty crazy hurricane. So, but it's, I like keeping up with the weather and stuff too, so it wasn't something that was absolutely horrendous to like endure in my point of view. But it was likely horrendous for the coast. I don't remember which hurricane it was or like how it hit, how bad it was, but I mean they're always not good. I obviously they're not good. They're always bad. So I guess it doesn't matter which one it was. It was probably bad, and it was very rough. So that was a time. That was a time, but then that really stuck with me that this time is definitely that hurricane season. And so I hope if you're dealing with that everything's okay. And, I'm really hoping for you for an easy summer. It's got to be a frustrating time, I think, constantly have this weather kind of coming at you. So right now, as I said here, it's hot. I don't know if it's so much humid, but it's hot. It's just, it feels a little hotter than normal. But it's okay. We're going to get through it. And, before you know it, it's going to be fall. We're going to be drinking pumpkin everything. I was just thinking about that the other day, too. I don't know why, but I was drinking my coffee, and I kept getting like the essence of like pumpkin spice coffee creamer, even though I was drinking French vanilla coffee creamer, but it kept giving me this vibe of pumpkin. And I was like, oh man, remember when? Which is so stupid because we're just a couple months out. And I think even a lot of fall stuff, or at least Halloween stuff I've seen, has been hitting places like, I think like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Anthropology, I think, had just put out their Halloween stuff, or at least a look at it, because I think they're the ones that had that cute little cat or dog ghost pillow or something like that, but that stuff's already kind of ramping up. I've heard rumors of Bath & Body Works getting their stuff out. As I record this, it hasn't came out yet, but when it comes out, this, you might already see everything, and it might already be out there, so I don't know, but we'll get through it. We'll get through this time, and it'll be good. We'll be okay, I promise. So, anyways, so once again, welcome to today's episode. What's everyone sipping on? I just have some plain water. I think I was fun for like a couple episodes, and now we're at the water, but I don't know. I need something, So, anyways, you've definitely have seen the topic for today's episode. It's right there. I believe it's right there in the titles, or it should be, unless I'm clickbaiting you. But anyways, it is quarterly reading goals. This is a sort of series I was looking to start on. This little thing is sort of kind of just opens it up for one to be a series. I think that's always a good thing to have when you start a podcast, a YouTube channel, whatever you're doing, any social media. I think it's good to have those little things you can come back to and you maybe people expect. So this kind of goes in tandem with the monthly wrap-ups, which I know are very popular in the book community online too. So it was just kind of something that I felt could be kind of a nice thing, kind of a cool thing. I decided to do quarterly because I felt like monthly was crazy. But then I felt yearly was kind of weird. I don't know. I feel like I'd just forget them all then or something. So I figured out quarterly, which, of course we have the quarters of the year. I felt that could be kind of fun and maybe a little bit more realistic and a little bit more approachable in some ways. These goals are not super intensive, I guess I would say. They're still something. And I don't know what my overall objective is with this. I guess maybe that'll adapt and shift. But these are just kind of some goals I thought of in pertaining to my reading habits now and kind of what I want to do better, I would say. I do think that doing a little bit of editing here, but I do think that these goals will carry over and some may disappear. So I don't know if this is a fully definitive, I'm only doing this for quarter 3, which is what we are entering now, is July through September. At least that's what Google told me. I'm not not a bank person who really has down the whole quarterly thing. But for these kind of setup months, I do think these goals may carry over. They may disappear. They're not super complicated, I would say. I try to keep it very kind of straightforward. I do know, especially I learned this in school that I don't know where I learned this in school, but I know that goals have to be they gotta be kind of what's the word? Not definitive. I'm not saying that word again. Measurable. They gotta be more measurable in a way. So what I have here is definitely meant to try to be there is ways I could show progress. Now, however, all of them, I tried for most of them. Okay, all of them do not exactly follow that guideline, and it's because they're kind of meant to be more flexible, I guess you could say. I don't want to give myself too much goals where I feel overwhelmed, and I don't want this to feel like homework. This, what I'm doing here and what I'm doing with my reading and stuff, it should be a fun hobby. This should be a fun thing. I don't want anything to feel like homework or I have to do this or work, I guess, in a way, just plain old work, homework or not. So I'm going to try to be relaxed with myself when going through all this and when tracking it and that whole thing. I will try to give updates on the progress in the next quarter when I come back and I evaluate and set new goals or carry over goals. There will be an update section. So I hope that's kind of interesting, and I hope maybe someone is maybe inspired by my goals, or let me know any of your goals too. I, of course, will love to read and understand what do you strive for, and how do you set up your goals, and what are your habits, and where do you think you could be with your reading and that sort of thing. But like I said, it's nothing with too much pressure. This isn't a performance review at a job or something. This is just, what goals do you want to set for yourself to maybe hopefully make you a better reader or a more informed reader or a more diverse reader, or not? Or do you just not think about these things? That'd be another conversation too. You just going on a whim. You don't even consider what you're reading, how much you're reading, when you're reading. That could be interesting too, because I am someone who I love to track everything I do, because I think it's kind of a fun way to keep track of obviously to keep track of everything. Wow. Say the word track again, right? But it's still kind of fun and all kind of a neat little process thing. So let's just, I guess, dive in then to the sort of goals I have laid out. Some of these I hope are kind of cool or interesting. I don't know. I guess you'll tell me. But my first one up here is I want to finish at least 2 books per month in this quarter. With that, I feel like I'm kind of slacking a bit, I guess. I try not to compare my reading habits now to when, during like maybe the pandemic or when I was like commuting to work on public transportation. I felt like I then had, of course, so much more time to read and everything. And that is when I was definitely hitting like my peaks. But I try not to compare myself to that. But I still feel at a point that I am kind of losing something with my reading. And maybe it's just I'm not reading the right books. Maybe I'm too much in my head about it. Maybe I just don't have as much time. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I want to get through 2 books per month this quarter, which I do typically, that is typically what I am doing. No matter what, at least I have at least 2 or 3 books I get through. Some are more than others, but I want to try to keep that as like my baseline. And I'm not really setting much, up there. I'm trying to give myself room to read whatever. You will see, though, that I do kind of set more genre-based goals towards the end of my list, but I'm trying to give myself room. I try not to feel pressured, or like, I don't even know if it's pressured, but kind of just like, yeah, I guess it is kind of like a pressure for reading and stuff, and I do worry this podcast maybe isn't helping totally, but I am trying to also chill and be myself and just, journey on with this and share my thoughts, my ideas, my concepts, and not try to be too crazy, too hard on myself, because I do just like talking about this stuff too, and I don't know if it needs to always reflect in certain ways too. But, so I'm just trying to be authentic, good, and I think this is a realistic goal. As I kind of said, 2 books per month is kind of like my average kind of situation, so I think it'd be good. I think my overall reading goal for the year is 40 books, which I think I'm well on to. Let me actually check that right now. I got my phone right here. I don't even look at it much. I set it at the beginning of the year, and then that's it. Yeah, 40 books. Okay. That's my overall goal for all of 2025. I'm currently at 28 books, so I'm about 70% done. And yeah, I think that's good. So I think I'm on a good pace and stuff, but I do just want to keep, I want to make sure I'm reading. I want to also, help with my attention span. I think that's part of it too is, our attention spans these days are getting a little rough, but, stuff like audiobooks and all that kind of help, I think, too. And, yeah. So I'm trying to give myself room to read whatever, but I do also have some genre-focused goals too that I'll talk about in a bit. My next sort of goal is less, I would say, about reading so much and more about what I'm doing afterwards. So I want to consider writing or noting reflections, not reviews, but like reflections on books. I want to reflect on different aspects of the books. I want to think about my feelings and my attitude towards the books. What do you resonate with? What's this? What's that? Oh, and even what does reading this book say about me? Why did I choose it? What about it interests me? What do I, hope I got from it? Or what, who, I guess also keeping note of like, who's the author? What else do they do? That is something I'm really sometimes kind of bad at least in my adulthood. When I was younger, I was definitely more author focused, where if I found an author who I liked, I could just like one of their books, and the next thing you know, I'm reading their whole line. I'm not really like that anymore. Sometimes I don't even realize who the author is that I'm reading. So I think that could also be kind of considering that, and in my reflection too, like what does that kind of say and stuff. And I'm also keeping track of that too on like my book tracking app and all that. So I think that'd be good too. I also would like to be more in touch with the online book community. I feel like I've kind of fallen out of this. I'm kind of slipping. So I just recently got back on TikTok. I deleted it in March because I felt I was so addicted to it. And this is coming from someone who had been on TikTok since 2019, late 2018, early 2019, I would say. And I have been on it this entire time, consuming hours and hours and hours of it, to the point where, like, it's like a part-time job if you look at my, like, watching time and stuff. So back in March, I said, enough. I am going to quit this. I recognize this is probably an addiction. It's probably not good for me. I'm going to try to be more offline. However, pretty recently, I re-downloaded it as kind of to see if, like, I can control myself, and maybe I have beaten this addiction and I don't need TikTok, but it's there if I want it every now and then. I don't know how that's going, but in the process of doing that, I still have found myself back on Book Talk, which is, I shouldn't say completely back on it. I get it every now and then. I do keep up with some of the news. At least I definitely see the dramas that happen. It's kind of wild out there between AI prompts and books, and I guess when I say this, it'll probably be old news by the time you hear this, but there was also that book festival that was a disaster. So I'm kind of there. I'm kind of in the circle, but I'm not hearing much about recommendations. What are people reading? What do people like? What do people hate? What's the new fun stuff we're talking about on Book Talk? I'm not there yet. And I'd like to, I guess, be kind of more in touch in that way. I think it could bring interesting conversations and topics, possibly to even this show. I definitely need to be more on top of recent releases and such. I do feel kind of out of touch with some of it. It's, it's weird. It feels weird to be out of touch with it all, but I feel like that. Maybe I'm not as bad as I think, but I'd like to be more on that. I'd also like to look more on, like, YouTube and stuff. I used to be very much into book stuff on YouTube, and I am here and there, but I'd like to dive back into that a little bit more in a, I guess, more professional way now as I continue with this podcast and kind of make this as my, like, serious kind of hustle in a way. So just trying to be kind of dedicated to this production here and more that way, and less of I'm entertained and want to make myself mad and doom scroll or something. So trying to do that. And then I'm also on Threads. You probably see that if you ever look in the description of any of the episodes, but I am on Threads, and I try to use that because I do find I was quite amazed. I don't know when I realized it, but I realized recently that the book community on Threads is really thriving. And I don't know why. I don't know if that comes from, like, the book Instagram stuff and you just kind of transferred right over. Like, I know book Instagram's huge. I used to run one of those, and I did have to give that up with life and everything. So I don't know if it just natural transfer over, but I am dipping my toes back in to kind of the book Instagram world on Threads now, and it's pretty thriving. It's kind of amazing. So I'm just kind of working on that. I want to be a little bit more in touch on this area. I feel like I'm in touch in other places. But then it also feels weird sometimes to be, I don't know, online so much like that, especially as I get older and stuff. But we'll see how it goes for now. It's definitely trying to be a more professional approach in sort of it. So along kind of with this, this is something I used to do kind of that I kind of also want to bring back is I definitely want to try to annotate more. Another one, this is, I guess, kind of like the last one. This has less of a measurable aspect to it, but that's okay. It's still something that I think I'll know if I'm annotating with the books I read and I'm highlighting or I'm noting stuff, but I basically I want to try to get back into it again. I probably spoke against annotating in other episodes for sure. You've probably caught me maybe saying something about it, which my apologies, but I am shifting gears. I'm reconsidering an approach to it, and I want to try to at least highlight. I think with annotating, you may want to, like, look up, like, examples of people doing it online. And then you do, and you get people who are like, keeping this journal, and oh, these post-it notes mean this, and oh, I highlight this color to mean this, and here's a whole directory at the beginning of this book I'm gonna start, and I'm annotating XYZ for this, and it's like, whoa, like, it becomes like it is more like, I feel like you're studying a book, which is not bad. That's not bad. But then, are you inclined to read it when you're thinking, oh, I got to annotate this? And it becomes like, who are you annotating it for, and why are you? So I think there needs to be more of like breaking that down and I guess figuring that out in some ways. But I do want to take an easier, more comfortable approach to annotating. I want to try to highlight, at least start there digitally or physically. I want to highlight to start with and just, whatever I think is interesting and what I like. There's no pressure with it. I'm trying to be no pressure with any of these, because I feel like if you put too much pressure on yourself in these situations, you're just gonna fail. So your goal's got to be something you want to do, not what you think's expected of you to do, especially if you're doing it kind of as your free time, not like as part of a paying job or something, So I just want to approach annotating as something pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I did try once keeping a reading journal. That doesn't seem to go well. That felt like too much pressure. I will say I tried to be all real aesthetically pleasing, like on what I was seeing on Instagram and especially TikTok and stuff. And all this content, you can find so many examples on TikTok of people, oh, this is, I do this and this, and it's like, it looks great. It looks great online, but then as an actual person trying to fill out stuff, I think you hit a dead end, or you just feel like this is exhausting at certain points. So I'm trying to find a balance with it, but still keep it up, still keep it going. Now here's where I start to get into more measurable. That's the word. I keep forgetting that word. Oh my gosh, I just keep... You think I wouldn't have... I've already done how many episodes of this, and I'm like spewing out. I can't even talk, But anyways, here's a measurable goal, after I go on my rant about how they have to be measurable, and here I am finally pulling one out. But I want to try to find one nonfiction book per quarter to read. So this is a goal that I think hopefully, will transfer over into multiple quarters. So I'm trying to do at least one nonfiction book every 4 months, I guess, is kind of the idea here. This does kind of go against my first goal of trying to just read 2 books per month, and trying to let myself read whatever. But I do think this is still like super obtainable to read one nonfiction book every quarter. So I don't think it's anything crazy. I am giving myself free rein with this. Any topic, subject, who cares? It just has to be nonfiction, and it just has to be interesting to me. It can be any sort of topic. I do have a couple that I think I have on deck, at least what I'm considering. Let's go through them real fast, because I have my little Libby app pulled up here, which is always good. Here we go. It's under a true crime tag, so these are both, I believe, these are both labeled as true crime. The first one is Under the Banner of Heaven, which you all may know that from the Hulu show. I mean, from years. Oh, God, it's been years, I guess, at this point. From the Hulu show, but it is about a group of a really niche group of Mormons who they get into a lot of issues, and I guess, wow, saying issues makes it sound like nothing, but it was like, there was murder and such, and it's quite the layers of just these horrendous actions by this really specific group of Mormon fundamentalists. So it's like within it, but it's like even smaller. Obviously this is not, you can't talk about, one group and consider that everyone. Obviously this is a very specific area. I think it was just within the family. If the show was anything like the story, I believe it was just like, just one family. So it seems quite interesting. I enjoyed the show, and I would like to read to deep dive into the book. I think it'd be a good read. I will say, this is crazy. I have been meaning to read this book since October 2022. So that's probably when the show was airing. This is when I saved this to my Libby account. But we will get around to it. We're going to do it. I'm finally going to read it. And I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting. It is nonfiction. Oh, this guy has other books too. That's pretty cool. Okay. Very interesting. I think it'll be a good one. Good one to read. And then my next one that I'm planning for my nonfiction kind of stunt is called 5 Days at Memorial, which I believe, yes, it is about what happened at Memorial Medical Center after Hurricane Katrina, and how Hurricane Katrina, the power failed and there was flooding and heat and everything, and sort of, kind of what happened between the doctors and nurses, their actions they took against patients during this very rough time, and kind of the fallout of that. I think this could be a kind of a fascinating, I hate to say fascinating because that sounds so mean for nonfiction. That's the other thing is I find it really hard to assign any sort of ratings or reviews to nonfiction anything, because it's like real life. So obviously, girl, why'd you say it is real life? So how do you say what's good, bad, or not? So it's hard. I do find it hard to say this sounds, fascinating, but it does sound like an interesting kind of case. I don't know much about it, so I think that's kind of where the kind of interest populates from, and to just learn more about it. So those are two I have on deck now. I think there's a couple other nonfictions. Yeah, I think there might be other ones I've considered too, but those stood out as ones that I saved in my Libby under my little nonfiction tab. So those will be on the junket first for my nonfiction book per quarter to read kind of goals. So hopefully I get through those, and I think that'll be interesting. I think it'll be good. Moving on now, we'll hop off my little nonfiction kind of thing, and because I feel like I dragged on and on about that goal. But we'll move on now to my book ban. Not book ban. Whoa. Book buying ban. Not a book ban. Book buying ban. I'm trying not to buy any new books for the quarter. We'll see how that goes. We will see how that goes. I'm not someone who typically buys a lot of books anymore. You may have, if you've listened to previous episodes, you may have heard of that or heard my thoughts and opinions and stuff. So I'm not one to always be buying books. I don't have a huge collection. So it's not the end of the world, but I do have found myself, I did buy, I think, a little bit more than I usually do. And I'm trying, of course, I want to be using libraries and such. And if I do shop for a book, I do try to keep it to local bookstores, just as a sort of way to kind of help them out and keep them around and such. So no books for the next 4 months. We'll see how that goes with my budgeting and such. So second to last goal here, kind of coming down on it, and this kind of goes into more of the genres I am trying to lean towards, but not trying to pressure myself to. And there is no numerical goal with this, but I do just want to read more comics and manga. So I'm trying to get back into those. I'm kind of into it now, but this is a little bit of a more vague kind of thing. It's just an idea. It's just kind of an observation. It's just kind of a thing to keep in mind when I'm looking for a new read. Maybe, I am someone who, and I do think this is actually a problem in the comics community of, I am someone who will buy all these single issues of comics and then not read them till I have all the issues in a run. I try to do this for more obtainable ones, if there's only 20, not even, maybe that's my limit of if there's 20 comics in a run, I will do that. I think I'm using the word run correctly, but I guess they're more like volumes, groups, or whatever. But anyways, I try to buy single issue comics, and then I guess my whole point is I don't read them until I have like the whole story. This is a little bit easier if you get into like super duper long ones, so I'll buy like more like the volumes. I'll buy them already kind of packaged together kind of thing. But I do fall down the rabbit holes of just keeping, buying issues and trying to collect them all, and then I'll read them. So I do have a lot of comics that are kind of untouched because I'm missing like one comic in it, which is very frustrating because especially when I make lists and stuff and I go to comic book stores or I go to comic conventions and stuff, and I'm trying to, gather as what I can, and you think, oh, I finished it, and then you just didn't or whatever. So I'm still trying to, maybe I just need to start reading them. Then, girl, you'll come back to it or something. But that's just a goal, to just read kind of more comics and stuff. And there's already, there's always so much coming out all the time. Every, Wednesday, I think? Yeah, I think it's every Wednesday, new comic, or Tuesdays, or, gosh, I forget. I used to go every week. And now I can't remember what day of the week that was. Wow. I don't really have a comic book store I go to super, regularly anymore, so I have kind of fallen out of it, but that's okay. I'll get back into it. It's not, of course, the end of the world, so that's just kind of a thought, kind of a goal I had. Like I said, no set amount in mind, just an idea and something to keep aware of, and this will probably be a goal that transfers over to multiple quarters, I'll be honest, so we'll see how it goes. My final kind of goal I have listed or thought of here is I want to read, this may seem so little, and other people listening to this may be like, how is she finishing any book? But I want to read at least 30 minutes per day, no exceptions. Currently, I am reading about 30 minutes every weekday. I find myself not really reading on the weekends. So that's really bad. And that may also be contributing to why I feel like I'm slacking a bit. I just am not setting either enough time for myself, or I'm spending what could be reading time doing other things. I think that is something to really keep in mind too. And I see that mentioned on social media actually quite a bit, that that time you spend scrolling on TikTok, that could be reading time. It's not that people are just reading so much more than you, or they have so much more time than you. It's just they're using their time differently than yours. It all comes down to how do you spend your free time. So I am trying to adjust that, hopefully a little bit there. I don't, and hopefully this, works its way up to being even more, like an hour or so. But I typically spend the time before I go to bed reading. So that's kind of where the 30 minutes kind of comes in. And that's, every weekday I do spend time reading and stuff, and it works. I do get books read. I'm doing just fine, but kind of, I guess. But I just want to focus a little bit more on it, and I do use sometimes this has been kind of helpful, is a focus timer, where you set your phone. It's an app. There's a bunch of different apps like this that are about focus timers and stuff, but you set it for so long. Some of them give you rewards if you don't pick up your phone or use your phone or exit the app during that time, which is cool. I don't really have one that serious. It literally is just kind of a timer, and it just it tells me. But it's kind of a nice little mental thing to know, okay, we're going to start the timer, put the phone down, pick up the book, go, and then I find myself, I'll get lost in it. It'll turn into an hour or so or something. So I haven't used it super recently, but I'm hoping to do that kind of a little bit more, because I think that'll be maybe helpful too, and we'll work our way up there. But yeah, just working on that attention span, getting back into it, and hopefully, I think it all kind of depends on the book and stuff, so hopefully finding books that really captivate you and really hold you and don't feel like a chore, or, you're kind of listening to what appeals to you, what's interesting, that whole kind of thing. So I'm kind of hoping that works out well. We'll see how that goes, but I think these goals are pretty good. I think they're pretty interesting. For the most part, I guess, they're kind of personal, so maybe you're listening to this and you're like, that sounds ridiculous, but of course, that always leaves room for you to share your goals with me. What does it look like for you? What kind of time frame do you set? Monthly goals? Only yearly goals? I know yearly stuff is humongous, of course, and people will come back and see that and reevaluate every year and like kind of do like what I read kind of situations, which I think that's always really fun, and I hope to do something like that too as we enter kind of the end of the year. But that's a bit of ways, so I don't know. I know people do that, but what are you looking forward to? What's your kind of ideas with these quarterly goals? Do you like this idea? Do you hate this idea? Do you not want me to do another one of these episodes? I think this could be a little bit more interesting, a little bit more, maybe longer. This does feel like a kind of a short episode. When I get to like sharing updates and the progress and that whole sort of thing. So, I think it'll get a little bit more meatier and nuanced as time goes on and there's actual progress, hopefully to track and discuss and really sort of dive into and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to from July to September. I know this comes out, I think, about towards the end of July, I think is kind of what I said in the beginning. So I should already be kind of deep into these goals and just eating them all up, right? So by the time you hear this and stuff, but hopefully it's still kind of an interesting and kind of a cool idea. And I hope you like this. Thank you so much for listening. Let me definitely would love to hear from you. In the comments, email, whatever. What are your ideas on this whole thing? What are your goals? What are you looking forward to reading? What's the hot new thing that people are reading and everyone wants to talk about and discuss? I would love to hear. Of course, I'm always open to like topic ideas and that sort of thing because I do kind of hit a wall sometimes with topic ideas, and that's also kind of why I started these sort of series in a way, this quarterly or the monthly wrap-ups, that sort of thing, is it gives me a kind of natural way to fit something in that I think could be interesting and such or whatnot. But I guess next time we'll talk about this will be in what month? Oh, October. Yeah, October. So hopefully about mid-October update, and then bring out the new goals that'll wrap up 2025, right? It's 2025? Yeah, okay. I don't know why. Sometimes I think I'm stuck in 2024. I kid you not. That sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but sometimes I am. I catch myself being like, oh, shit, that's time flying, I guess, but that's okay. That's, not a big deal. I guess, yeah. My lack of time is not really a big deal. But yeah, so next time we'll discuss this, we'll be heading towards Q4, as all the cool business people call it. Q4 we'll be heading into, and I'll get an update, and maybe I'll have some new goals. Maybe this list won't change, and I'll be like, I failed everything. So we'll have to see. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a beautiful day, month, year, whatever you're moving into when you kind of hear this. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Thank you so much, and keep reading on.